So, when you look at a financial spreadsheet and it feels like physics.
Oh, totally. Like a hard science.
Right. You have these perfectly aligned rows and columns, the crisp little formulas calculating sums to the exact decimal.
Yeah, there is this deeply comforting illusion of control there.
Exactly. You put the right numbers in, you get the right numbers out. But then you take that mathematically perfect spreadsheet.
And you hand it over to a human.
Yes. You hand it over to a messy, emotional human being.
Yeah.
And suddenly that beautiful logical framework it bursts into flames.
It really does because, we desperately want finance to be a hard science.
Right.
We are taught from a young age that if you just master the algorithms, the interest rate formulas, the tax codes, you will succeed.
Like it's just an intelligence test.
Exactly. But the reality is that the collision between clean math and human behavior is basically where most financial plans go to die.
And that collision is exactly what we are exploring today in this deep dive.
It is.
We are looking directly at you, the listener, and dissecting the psychology behind your money.
Yeah, the stuff no one really talks about.
Right. And we're drawing from this incredible summary document of Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money.
Such a good text.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the mission for our deep dive today, the core premise here, it completely flips our standard cultural script.
It completely upends it, yeah.
It argues that financial success is not about your intelligence. It's not about having like a high IQ or being a spreadsheet savant.
No, not at all.
It is almost entirely about your behavior.
Which is just a profound paradigm shift if you think about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you assume finance is a pure intelligence test, right, then every time you make a mathematically suboptimal choice, the internal narrative is just so toxic.
Like, I'm just not smart enough to figure this out.
Exactly. But Housel is suggesting that doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are and, everything to do with how you behave.
Yeah.
It is an emotional discipline, not a cognitive one.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if intelligence isn't the key, we need to look at what actually drives these decisions.
Right, the root cause.
And the source points straight to our emotional wiring. Like, it makes me think of dieting.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Because everyone on Earth knows the exact hard math of weight loss. It's calories in, calories out.
It is indisputable biology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yet people struggle immensely with it. Why? Because you don't eat an entire pizza at 10 p.m. because you forgot the mathematical equation for a calorie.
No, you definitely know the math in that moment.
Yeah. You eat it because you had a terrible day at work, your cortisol is spiking, and your brain is just screaming for a dopamine hit.
And the exact same neurological and emotional mechanisms apply to our spending and our investing.
Exactly.
We don't make financial choices in a sterile laboratory. We make them in the real world, heavily influenced by personal experiences, fear, ego, and just deeply ingrained habits.
I mean, you don't buy the brand new, wildly expensive luxury car at like an 8% interest rate because a calculator told you it was an appreciating asset.
No, the calculator would scream at you.
Right. You buy it because your ego wants to signal status to your neighbors.
Yeah, it's social signaling.
Or, on the flip side, you don't panic sell all your retirement investments at the absolute bottom of a market crash because the math says buy high, sell low.
No, you do it because evolutionary biology tells you to run away from perceived danger.
Exactly. The fear is just completely overwhelming the logic.
What's fascinating here is how liberating this realization can be for people.
Oh, totally. How so?
Well, when you accept that money is an emotional arena, it removes the shame of past mistakes.
That makes so much sense.
Right. It shifts your internal monologue from self-judgment, like, why am I so stupid?
Yeah, to self-awareness. Like, what emotional trigger caused me to make that purchase?
Precisely. You start looking at your habits, your stress responses, and your ego, rather than just staring at a spreadsheet hoping it will fix your behavior.
But, okay, if our choices are constantly being driven by ego and habit, what exactly is the ego chasing?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because we grind at work, we obsess over our portfolios, we constantly try to increase our income. But the source argues that most people are exhausting themselves, chasing the wrong concept entirely.
They really are. The text draws a massive critical distinction between two concepts that our culture uses basically interchangeably,
Right.
rich and wealthy.
Which people think are the exact same thing.
They do, but they are not synonyms. In fact, behaviorally speaking, they are often in direct opposition to one another.
I mean, I hear people use those words in the same breath all the time. So
Yeah.
what is the actual difference there?
Well, rich is a measure of current income. It is
Right.
highly visible. If someone is driving a $100,000 car and living in a massive mansion, they might be rich because they have a high enough income to afford those monthly payments.
Right. You can see it.
Exactly. But wealthy means having assets. Wealth is the money that has not been spent.
Interesting.
It is the portfolio, the investments, the financial freedom. Wealth is inherently hidden.
Okay, I have to challenge this framing, though.
Go for it.
Because if wealth is purely unspent assets, that sounds, frankly, miserable to the average person.
I know, it really does sound boring.
Right. We are culturally conditioned to view saving as a punishment.
Absolutely.
It's the vacation you didn't take, the nice dinners you skipped, the old clothes you keep wearing. Does the author actually expect people to just hoard money in a vault, live like monks, and never enjoy the fruits of their labor?
That is the most common pushback.
I mean, what is the point of a high number on a screen if you never touch it?
It's a natural reaction, but it stems from a total misunderstanding of what those unspent assets actually buy.
What do you mean?
You aren't hoarding money just to have a high score. Housel defines true wealth, or financial independence, strictly as the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want.
Oh, wow. So you aren't just denying yourself a consumer good. You are actually buying future autonomy.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, wealth is essentially the accumulation of time, not things.
The accumulation of time, I love that.
Right. When you choose not to upgrade their car, you aren't just leaving money in a bank account. You are literally hoarding future time.
Giving yourself options.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
giving yourself the financial runway to walk away from a toxic boss or to take a risk on a new career path.
Or take 6 months off to care for a sick family member without facing total financial ruin.
Exactly.
That completely flips the psychology of saving. It takes it from being a restriction to being a purchase.
Right. You are purchasing control over your own calendar.
So rich is spending your money to show people how much money you have.
Which, ironically, usually traps you in a high-stress job just to maintain those payments.
Wow. Yeah. But wealthy is keeping your money to buy back your freedom.
And that hidden nature of wealth makes it very hard to emulate.
Because we can't see it.
Exactly. We learn by observing. We see someone's expensive watch and think, oh, I want to be successful like them.
But we don't see the index funds or the paid-off mortgage.
Nope. We only see the spending. So we mimic the spending, thinking we are building wealth, when in reality we are just becoming rich while actively destroying our potential for true wealth.
Okay, so if the ultimate goal is to buy back our time, to build these invisible assets and achieve autonomy, how do we practically execute that?
Good question.
Like, how do we build the wealth without getting derailed by the ego?
Well, the source material outlines 3 major forces in the mechanics of financial growth.
Okay.
One force is entirely within our behavioral control, and the other 2 are massive, external, and terrifyingly out of our control.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, it does.
Because the force we control is compounding. And while compounding sounds like a dry high school math topic, it is actually the most powerful, mind-bending mechanism in finance.
It really is magic.
It requires you to make small, consistent investments over time, and then, crucially, leave them alone. Let time do the heavy lifting.
Yes, and the math of compounding is so unintuitive to the human brain.
Totally. To visualize it, think about planting an oak tree.
I like this analogy.
Right. Your only contribution to this process is the tiny, mundane act of watering the sapling, making sure the soil is okay, and leaving it alone.
Just boring daily stuff.
Yeah, you do this boring maintenance day after day, year after year.
And the consistency of the watering is the behavioral discipline, and the results are nonlinear.
Which is hard for us to grasp.
It is. The classic example Housel uses to illustrate this is Warren Buffett.
Oh, yes.
We think of Buffett as an investing genius, right? But the real secret is simply time.
Just massive amounts of time.
Exactly. The vast, overwhelming majority of his massive net worth came after his 65th birthday.
Wait, really? After 65?
Yes. It wasn't just that he picked good stocks. It was that he started when he was a literal child and never interrupted the compounding process for 3/4 of a century.
Wow. Right. But, while you were out there dutifully watering your little tree, trying to be the next Warren Buffett,
Mm-hmm.
you have to contend with the other 2 forces.
Ah, Yes.
Luck and risk.
The big ones.
Because the text makes a point that success is never just about your individual skill or effort. Luck and risk are the weather.
That's a perfect way to put it.
They are the overarching, unpredictable forces of nature.
And they are essentially two sides of the exact same coin.
Right.
They both represent the reality that outcomes are driven by forces outside of your individual effort.
Exactly. Like, luck is the perfect sequence of sunny days and gentle rain that supercharges your tree's growth.
Right, things you didn't do.
Yeah. Maybe you graduated into a booming job market, or you happened to buy a house right before a massive demographic shift drove up property values in your area.
Your watering helped, but the sunny weather did the heavy lifting.
On the flip side, risk is the unexpected lightning strike.
A storm.
Yeah, you could be the most diligent gardener on the planet. You could have saved consistently, avoided bad debt, diversified your portfolio,
Done everything right.
done everything perfectly. But then, an unpredictable macroeconomic event hits, like the 2008 housing collapse or a global pandemic.
Or even on a personal level, a sudden catastrophic medical emergency that insurance just refuses to cover.
The lightning strikes, and your tree takes massive damage.
And acknowledging the existence of the weather, the profound impact of luck and risk is vital for our psychological well-being.
Why is that?
Because it prevents two huge behavioral traps. First, it breeds empathy.
Empathy, interesting.
Yeah, when we see someone else's financial tree burned to the ground, our initial instinct is often judgment.
We think, oh, they must have been bad with money. They didn't water their tree.
Exactly. But when you understand risk, you realize they might have just caught a lightning strike.
It wasn't a lack of intelligence. It was an unfortunate roll of the dice.
And equally important, acknowledging luck builds humility regarding your own success.
Oh, that is so true.
If you attribute every single dollar in your bank account solely to your own brilliant intellect and hard work, your ego inflates to a really dangerous level.
You start to believe you are invincible.
Right. You forget that you were fortunate enough to be planting in a fertile economic climate.
But wait, if the weather can wipe out my tree at any moment, regardless of how well I tend to it, why even bother?
It can feel nihilistic, yeah.
Right. How do I actually protect myself against forces I can't control? If luck and risk are always present, where's the defense mechanism?
Well, the defense mechanism brings us right back to behavior.
Okay.
Specifically, the management of your own greed.
Greed.
The text emphasizes that the only way to survive the inevitable lightning strikes of risk is to stay humble, maintain a margin of safety, and avoid greed.
I struggle with the word greed in this context.
Really? Why?
Because if the entire point of investing and compounding is to grow your money and accumulate more wealth to buy back your time, well, isn't that inherently greedy?
I see what you mean.
How does a normal investor recognize the boundary between I am consistently investing for my future and I am being dangerously greedy?
That is the core behavioral tension right there. The distinction lies in the timeline and the process.
Okay, unpack that.
Consistent investing respects the slow, mathematical reality of compounding. Greed, on the other hand, is a behavioral failure where your ego demands faster results.
It's looking at the tree, getting impatient that it's only growing a few inches a year, and deciding to dump experimental chemical fertilizer all over it, hoping it will shoot up overnight.
That is the exact analogy. And let's look at the actual mechanism of how greed destroys wealth.
Right.
Compounding requires steady, uninterrupted time. But greed makes you look at a boring, reliable index fund returning, say, 7% a year and feel inadequate.
Especially if your neighbor just got rich quickly off a speculative bet.
Yes. So you pull your money out of the reliable asset to chase a highly volatile stock or some massive leverage play.
You are basically resetting the compounding clock to zero just to chase a dopamine hit.
Precisely. By demanding faster results, you are forced to step out from the safety of a diversified long-term strategy and introduce unnecessary risk.
Right.
Chasing too much simply means you are actively walking out into a thunderstorm holding a metal pole.
Wow. Inviting the lightning strikes.
You really are. It is the fastest way to lose everything because you are exposing the time and freedom you've already accumulated to catastrophic weather events.
Just purely for the ego boost of getting richer faster.
Exactly.
So humility isn't just some nice, ethical, moral high ground. It is quite literally a financial shield.
It is the ultimate shield.
Humility is knowing that you don't have a crystal ball. Humility is building an emergency fund, a lightning rod, even when the math tells you that cash is losing value to inflation. The spreadsheet says, invest every penny to maximize returns. Humility says, Keep some cash under the mattress because the world is chaotic and unpredictable.
And humility keeps you in the game long enough for compounding to actually work its magic.
Right.
When you lack humility, you take bets that have the potential to wipe you out completely. And in finance, avoiding the complete wipeout, surviving the bad weather, is far more important than maximizing every single percentage point of return.
This entirely reframes what it means to be good with money.
It really does.
We assume it requires a Wall Street pedigree or a genius-level intellect. But looking through the lens of the psychology of money, being good with money is actually an exercise in emotional regulation.
Absolutely.
It is knowing the difference between the visible trap of being rich and the invisible freedom of being wealthy. It's understanding that a high savings rate isn't a punishment.
It's the systematic purchase of your own future autonomy.
Yes. And it requires the discipline to let time do the heavy lifting. You have to endure the boredom of compounding.
Which is hard.
Very hard. And respect the massive, uncontrollable roles that luck and risk play in everyone's lives. And cultivate enough humility to prevent greed from resetting your progress.
You said it perfectly.
The spreadsheet isn't the problem. The math of personal finance is remarkably simple. It's the messy, emotional human entering the numbers that complicates everything.
Yep.
So what does this all mean?
Well, it leaves us with a necessary, maybe even slightly uncomfortable reflection for you, the listener.
We'll lay it on them.
We've established that true wealth is simply the ability to do what you want when you want. And we've established that your behavior, your ability to regulate fear, ego, and greed, is what ultimately dictates that wealth.
Right.
So consider your own financial life right now. When you feel financial stress or when you make a purchase you later regret, well, how much of that is actually coming from a lack of mathematical knowledge?
Good question.
And how much of it is just coming from your ego?
That is the ultimate diagnostic question. If you look closely at your own financial choices, it is rarely the math that is failing you.
The math is perfect.
It's your own internal weather you have to worry about. Keep an eye on those emotional lightning strikes. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.